I recently did a video where we went off-grid camping in Northland. I talked about its benefits, the cost and how it was so much cheaper, and some of the challenges. In doing this, I realised it's probably worth doing a video explaining what freedom camping is and what it means in New Zealand. Hi, I'm Emily and I run Emily in NZ. I post about living, working and exploring this beautiful country that is New Zealand. Hit subscribe because I post a new video every Friday. So, freedom camping. Freedom camping in New Zealand, you can't just pull up on the side of the road and sleep. It is not allowed, and there's been a lot of legislation brought in recently. 20, 30 years ago, New Zealand was famous for the fact you could freedom camp all around the country. You could park up and you could stay somewhere for free. As with anything, the system's been abused and they've changed the legislation. But there is some fantastic opportunities where you can camp for free or for a reduced price, as we did in my video. So some of the clear definitions around freedom camping in New Zealand. Freedom camping is staying overnight in a public place in a tent, caravan, campervan or temporary structure. It is important you consider where you are and you check the restrictions of where you can stay. Now this gets really confusing because I'm talking about New Zealand. Actually, every single council has their own rules. So for example, in our travels across New Zealand, the tightest area for freedom camping is Queenstown. There's a lot of restrictions and a lot of fines, which I'll talk about later. But Waikato on the North Island has a lot more relaxed freedom camping, and I've seen more free bays and areas which you can park up than anywhere else in the country. Another example is Auckland Council. Auckland Council do allow freedom camping at certain sites, and there's some gorgeous sites I can recommend, like Hatfields Beach and Shakespeare. However, you can only camp in them if you're fully self-certified, so you can't stay in a tent. So with Queenstown, unfortunately, people took advantage of the freedom camping rules. Queenstown is a great place and I highly recommend going. I've got a few videos about Queenstown, which I'll put a link to here. But you really need to be careful when camping because people took advantage of the freedom camping rules and they were the first council to really stamp down on it. Wherever you're freedom camping, you need to consider how you dispose of your waste, whether that's waste water, waste rubbish, and the waste that comes from our toilets. From July 2023, Queenstown really increased their infringements. You can be fined $200 for appropriately freedom camping but failing to display your blue or green warrant card that says that you are allowed to freedom camp. If you fraudulently claim that your vehicle is self-contained and it's not, there's a $600 fine. If you damage any flora or fauna in the area through freedom camping, through mismanagement of waste, there's an $800 fine. These measures are really important to ensure responsible camping and to keep New Zealand beautiful. And I think once you're there, you will completely agree that you wouldn't want to see people leaving their cars and their waste in all these beautiful places. So it needs to be controlled. It is worth doing your research if you are planning on free camping or reduced camping on non-formal sites. However, there's some great places where you can get much more affordable camping, which is what I talked about in my off-grid video. So for example, Department of Conservation. Department of Conservation, or DOC, provide multiple walking sites and camping sites around New Zealand. They are beautiful. They're government owned and they open them up for you to camp or to walk. They make it very clear what's permitted and what's restricted. I recommend going to the Department of Conservation's website and having a look at their campsites. They explain whether you're allowed to camp in a tent, which is a non-certified accommodation, or in a caravan or a campervan. They also have sites which are absolutely no camping whatsoever, and a lot of the sites are also manned, particularly in the summer months, so I can highly recommend going to them in the summertime where they have rangers and people on site to help you. There is one rule that goes across all Department of Conservation sites though: absolutely no dogs. So if you want to go on holiday in your caravan or your campervan with your dog, it's not going to happen on Department of Conservation sites. The recent rule changes around self-containment, which I'll do a video about next, are really worth understanding when you can have a blue card, a green card, or a yellow card. That's a whole video in itself, so keep an eye out for that video, and if you're watching in the future, it'll be recommended at the end. It's worth noting that a lot of sites require you to be self-contained because they don't have the ability to manage waste, to dispose of the waste, and this is something that is worth looking into. Obviously, if you're in a tent, that's not going to happen. A lot of dock sites allow tents to stay, and a few council sites do as well. Keep an eye on signage. Signage is key. There are some areas that are designated freedom camping and the signage will make it clear. There'll be restrictions. For example, you need to be out by 9 a.m. in the morning. You can only stay for 2 nights, 3 nights or 5 nights. They'll also have a limit on how many people can stay at any one time. So sometimes you'll find the bays allow for 3 people or 4 people, and once it's full, it's full. There are risks with freedom camping. For example, if it's peak season and 4 people have already got there, you're not staying there tonight. You're going to have to move on. Now, freedom camping is great if you're in a camper van or a van, and a self-contained one at that. We're in a caravan. For years, we did have a small van, which we travelled around New Zealand, which was great. And it makes sense to park in one of those bays. We are fully self-contained in this caravan, except for a lot of the time, we're too big for the areas. I highly recommend hiring a camper van from a rental company in New Zealand. They will be self-contained, and if you get yourself up to date on the freedom camping rules, you will have a fantastic trip. If you're looking at a caravan or a camper van and you live in New Zealand, you have to weigh up the options over what works for you. We love the Department of Conservation sites because a lot of them are great for us and they're not designated spots. You can even book through the website, and we love the council sites as well. So in conclusion, freedom camping in New Zealand is amazing. It really opens up some fantastic locations, and it's a much more affordable way of staying overnight at different locations in New Zealand. But it comes with a lot of rules and understanding the different rules that it's set up for each local government. Thank you for watching. I hope you found that useful. Please go and do some more research, particularly around the areas that you're looking at travelling in New Zealand. I post every week with more updates about different things around New Zealand, so hit subscribe so you'll be notified. In the meantime, check out one of these videos.